A girl is fired for helping Keanu Reeves. The next day, she receives news that changes her life. Before we continue the story, grab your popcorn and your drink and get comfy and tell us in the comment below where you are watching from. And if you like inspiring stories like that about Keanu Reeves, subscribe to the channel because tomorrow at 8 p.m. we have another incredible story especially for you. It all began on a cold January morning in 2023 when Anna Myers, a 28-year-old waitress working at a quiet cafe in Los Angeles, was unexpectedly fired for what seemed to be an act of kindness. The reason? She had taken the trouble to help a customer, a man she hadn't even recognized at first, until the world-famous actor Keanu Reeves removed his baseball cap and gave her a humble, grateful smile. Anna didn't think much of it. Keanu had arrived at the cafe late at night, visibly exhausted, the weight of the world on his shoulders. She was finishing her shift when she noticed his wallet had fallen under the seat. Without hesitation, she picked it up and ran out into the cold night to catch him before he left. "Sir, you forgot this," she shouted, reaching him just as he was about to open the door of a modest black sedan. Keanu turned around, surprised. For a moment, Anna saw something in his eyes, gratitude and something else she couldn't quite decipher. "Thank you," he murmured, then hesitated for a second before adding, "You didn't even look inside, did you?" Anna shook her head, a little confused. "Why would I?" she replied with a smile. But when her manager found out the next morning, everything changed. "You left the cafe during your shift, and for just some random customer," her boss yelled, not even giving her a chance to explain. "We can't allow that kind of carelessness here, Anna. I'm sorry, but you're fired." Shocked and devastated, Anna tried to defend herself, but her words fell on deaf ears. With tears in her eyes, she packed up her belongings in a small box and left the cafe behind. The next day, while sitting in her tiny apartment, wondering how she would pay her rent, the news broke. Keanu Reeves had made an announcement that would not only shake the world, but also change Anna's life in a way she never imagined. It wasn't a scandal, nor was it about a new movie. It was a heartfelt story about an angel of kindness who had reminded him why it was still worth believing in humanity. "Someone out there didn't treat me like a celebrity," Keanu said in a heartfelt interview. "They treated me like a human being when I needed it the most." Anna held her breath as she watched the television. He was talking about her, but what Keanu revealed next left her frozen, tears rolling down her cheeks. His voice on the screen was firm, but filled with vulnerability, something that took Anna by surprise. She hadn't expected him to talk about her, let alone in such a raw and emotional way. "That night," he said, pausing to take a breath, "I had just visited someone who means a lot to me, someone who is no longer here. I wasn't sure if I could hold myself together, and then this stranger, this woman, went out of her way to help me. Not because I'm someone special, but because she cared." Anna felt her chest tighten as she saw his face on the screen. There was something haunting about his expression, a sadness that mirrored her own, in ways she couldn't fully understand. "In that moment," Keanu continued, "I realized that even when life feels unbearable, kindness can save us. She didn't know me. She didn't expect anything in return. She simply saw a person in need and acted. That night changed me." Anna sank into her old couch, silent tears streaming down her face. For a fleeting moment, she felt as if the universe had pushed her towards something she couldn't yet comprehend. But as the story continued, the weight of her own struggles crashed back down on her. She was still jobless, still unsure of how she would make it through. Then came the twist that took her breath away. "I've been looking for her," Keanu said, staring straight into the camera with determination. "I don't know her name, but if she's out there, I just want to say thank you. And if there's any way I can return her kindness, I'll do whatever it takes." Anna's phone vibrated. It was a message from her friend Lydia. "Anna, this is about you. You're all over the news." The realization hit her like a tidal wave. That small act of kindness, one she hadn't thought twice about, had triggered something far bigger than she had ever imagined. But with that realization came fear. Keanu Reeves was looking for her. What would she even say if he found her? Would he think less of her, now that she was jobless and broke? The next morning, Anna stepped into the cold Los Angeles air, wrapped in her second-hand coat. She needed to clear her mind. But as she walked the streets, lost in thought, she didn't notice the black sedan that had just pulled up to the curb. "Excuse me," said a familiar, gentle voice. Anna froze, slowly turning around. Standing before her was Keanu Reeves. His eyes softened, recognition lighting up his face. "It's you," he whispered, almost inaudibly. Anna's breath caught in her throat. She opened her mouth to say something, anything, but no words came out. Keanu gave her a small smile, one filled with the same kindness she had shown him that night. "I've been looking for you." And in that instant, the moment changed. It wasn't about fame. It wasn't about charity. It was just two strangers standing in the cold, connected by a fleeting moment. Neither of them fully understood, but both deeply felt. Anna finally found her voice. "I didn't think you'd remember me. How could I forget?" Keanu said sincerely. "You reminded me of something I thought I had lost." He hesitated, as if debating how much to share. Then, after a brief pause, he added, "I'd like to return the favor." But before Anna could respond, her phone vibrated again. This time, it was a message from her landlord. Her rent was overdue. An eviction notice was on the way. Panic surged through her, but she quickly hid it. She didn't want Keanu to notice. What she didn't know was, he already had. "Are you okay?" he asked gently, concern shining in his dark eyes. Anna forced a smile, but tears were already welling up. "I'm fine," she lied. That's when Keanu did something that left her completely speechless. His gaze didn't waver. His concern cut through her weak attempt to pretend. He tilted his head slightly, as if trying to read the truth in her expression. Before Anna could say another word, he softly said, "You don't have to tell me what's wrong, but I can see that something is." The weight of everything Anna had been carrying suddenly became unbearable. She shook her head, her voice breaking as she whispered, "It's nothing." Keanu hesitated for a moment before carefully extending his hand, as if unsure whether it was okay. When Anna didn't pull away, he gently rested it on her shoulder. "Anna," he said softly, saying her name as if it was the most important thing in the world. And that broke her completely. The tears spilled over, hot and unstoppable. "I lost my job," she admitted, her voice shaking. "I can't pay my rent. I don't know what I'm going to do." She hugged herself, feeling exposed and vulnerable in a way she hadn't since she was a child. Keanu's expression changed. It wasn't pity. It was something deeper, a kind of understanding that made Anna feel seen. "They fired you because of what you did for me, didn't they?" Anna hesitated, then nodded, wiping her tears. "It doesn't matter. I'll manage." Keanu took a step closer, lowering his voice. "It does matter. You didn't deserve that. You helped someone, and the world needs more people like you. Let me help you." Anna quickly shook her head. "I can't let you do that." "You didn't hesitate to help me," he interrupted, his voice firm yet gentle. "You didn't ask for anything in return. Let me return the favor." Before she could protest again, Keanu reached into his pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. He held it out to her, and when Anna hesitated, he smiled softly. "Just take it." Slowly, Anna unfolded the paper. Her eyes widened. A check. The amount written on it was more money than she had ever seen in her life. Her hands trembled. She looked up at him, her voice barely audible. "I can't accept this. It's too much." Keanu's smile turned bittersweet. "It's not about the money, Anna. It's about what you did for me. You gave me something I hadn't felt in years. Hope. This is my way of saying thank you. Please." Anna stared at him, torn between gratitude and guilt. "I don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything," Keanu said softly. "Just promise me one thing." "What?" she whispered. "Don't let the world take away your kindness. It's rare and powerful. Don't lose it." For the first time in days, Anna felt a spark of hope, but before she could respond, Keanu hesitated, his expression darkening again. "There's something else," he said quietly. "Something I didn't tell you that night." Anna frowned, her heart pounding, as she saw the pain in his eyes. "What is it?" Keanu's voice dropped to a near whisper. "That night, I was coming from the hospital. My sister is battling cancer." He paused, his eyes shining with unshed tears. "I didn't know if she was going to make it. I felt so lost." Anna's breath caught in her throat. She reached out instinctively, her fingers brushing his arm. "I'm so sorry," she murmured, her voice thick with emotion. Keanu gave her a small, sad smile. "That night, you didn't just return my wallet. You reminded me that even in the darkest moments, there's still light, and now I want to be that light for you." Tears streamed down Anna's face as she realized the depth of his words. This wasn't about charity. It wasn't about guilt. It was about two people who had unknowingly saved each other in ways neither of them fully understood. In that moment, standing in the cold, busy streets of Los Angeles, they both felt something shift, a connection that went beyond coincidence or circumstance. But life is never that simple. As Keanu opened his mouth to say something more, his phone vibrated in his pocket. He pulled it out, his face darkening as he read the message. "I have to go," he said, regret in his voice. "But this isn't over, Anna. I promise." And before she could respond, he gave her shoulder a gentle squeeze and turned to leave. Anna stood there, clutching the check in her hands, her heart filled with gratitude and confusion. She didn't know what would happen next, but something told her this was just the beginning of a story neither of them could have predicted. As she stood frozen on the sidewalk, watching Keanu disappear into the crowd, her mind was a whirlwind of emotions. She still held the check tightly, but her focus wasn't on the money. It was on the strange and unexpected bond she felt with a man whose life seemed so distant from her own. She wiped her tears, taking a deep breath. "This isn't real," she whispered to herself, but it was. That night, Anna returned to her tiny apartment, the check still in her hand. She placed it on her kitchen counter, staring at it as if it might disappear. The amount was enough to change her life, to pull her out of the spiral she was trapped in. Yet a part of her hesitated. It felt like too much, too fast. Her phone vibrated again. It was her friend Lydia. "You need to see this, now." Anna clicked on the link Lydia had sent. It led to a video of Keanu standing outside a hospital, surrounded by reporters. "She is my rock." His voice was steady but filled with emotion. "My sister. She's always been the strongest person I know. And as she fights this battle, I've realized how important it is to have people who remind you to keep going." He paused, lowering his gaze for a moment. "There's someone who reminded me of that. Someone I hope knows how much they've done for me." Anna's heart clenched as she watched Keanu's sister, a fragile woman with a gentle smile, being helped into the hospital by a nurse. Despite her pale complexion and the weight of her illness, she radiated warmth. Tears streamed down Anna's face. Keanu wasn't just being kind, he was carrying a weight she couldn't even imagine, and yet he had taken the time to find her, to try and make her life better, even as his own was falling apart. The next morning, Anna made a decision. Carefully folding the check, she slipped it into her bag. This wasn't about charity, it was about something deeper, a connection she couldn't explain, but couldn't ignore. She went to the hospital. At the entrance, she hesitated. Would they even let her see him? But just as she was gathering the courage to ask, a nurse walked by and smiled knowingly. "You're Anna, right?" Anna blinked, surprised. "How do you know that?" "He mentioned you," the nurse said softly, motioning for her to follow. "Come with me." She led Anna through winding hallways, to a quiet hospital room, through the small window in the door. Anna saw Keanu sitting beside his sister's bed, holding her hand and speaking to her in a low voice. His expression was gentle, but heavy with worry, his shoulders weighed down by sorrow. The nurse pushed the door open slightly, gesturing for Anna to step inside. Keanu looked up, his eyes widened in surprise. "Anna," he said, rising from his seat. "I hope I'm not interrupting," she said quickly, her voice shaking. "Is that her?" Keanu's sister asked softly, smiling warmly. Keanu nodded, never taking his eyes off Anna. "Yes," he said quietly, "it's her." Anna stepped forward, a lump forming in her throat. As she looked at his sister, "Hi," she said softly. "I'm Anna. I've heard a lot about you," Keanu's sister said, her kind smile defying the exhaustion in her eyes. "Thank you for taking care of my brother. He needs people like you." Anna looked at Keanu, her heart twisting at the vulnerability in his expression. "I didn't do anything special," she whispered. Keanu shook his head. "You did more than you know," he said. For the next hour, Anna stayed with them, talking softly about everything and nothing. She learned about his sister's love for painting, their childhood memories, her fight against the illness that had taken so much from her. As the afternoon faded, Anna felt something she hadn't in years, a sense of belonging, of purpose. But as she got ready to leave, Keanu walked her to the hallway, his expression serious. "Anna," he said softly, "I don't think you realize how much you've changed my life." She looked at him, tears in her eyes. "You've changed mine too." Keanu hesitated, as if choosing his words carefully. "I don't want this to be the last time we see each other." Anna's breath caught. "It doesn't have to be," she whispered, and for a moment, they stood there, the weight of everything unspoken between them. Then, Keanu's phone vibrated. He glanced at the screen, his face tensing. "It's the doctor," he said. Anna nodded, stepping back. "Go," she said, her voice steady despite the ache in her chest. But just before he disappeared into the hospital, he turned back one last time, his gaze locking onto hers. "This isn't goodbye," he said firmly. Anna stood there, her heart full of hope and uncertainty. As the door closed behind him,
If this story kept you hooked, you're in for more. Dive into a world of unforgettable tales filled with hope, compassion, and resilience. Click the screen and let the next story take you on a journey you won't forget.